He was bold on that. Taft was once found weeping after a particularly vigorous attack, saying, "I have lost my best friend."
What was the difference in the stature of the two? Was Theodore Roosevelt much bigger than him?
No, Roosevelt. I'm a little big for Roosevelt. I mean, I'm chubby. That's good. But Roosevelt himself, he was about 5'9" or 5'10", a little shorter than me, not very much so. Taft was a big boy. I mean, he was the heaviest president on record. I think he topped the weights over 300 pounds. He was a big man. No, I know that. I've read in several sources. He was the fattest president. Yes, ma'am.
Where you said that he and his wife settled in Virginia?
They had a vacation home in Albemarle called Pine Knot, and you can still visit it today. It's been preserved. It's up in the woods, so you have to call them ahead and let them know you'd like to see it, and they'll have somebody take you up. But Pine Knot, Albemarle County, and it's a beautiful little hunting lodge. It was part of a farm, and Mrs. Roosevelt, Edith, she bought 15 acres of that farm that had a house on it, and that was his place, but it was their place. And she, even though she couldn't cook, didn't mean that she wasn't the head of that house. In fact, their first night there, she went down to the spring to get water so she could make tea. He made supper and surprised her with 2 chickens. So he learned how to cook for himself, with his time in the Dakotas. So, yes, ma'am.
What was your most difficult year, your administration? Which was your most difficult year?
Most difficult year. I would say, if I had to guess, just personally, I would guess it was probably the first year after his first legitimate election, the one election that he won. Because he was, with McKinley being shot, he assumed that last 3 years. So he had a 7-year administration. Because one of his big concerns was he had made himself a lame duck. And that is the absolute last thing he needed, was to be a man in authority with no power. Because he loved wielding the power. In fact, it's leading from that. One of the things that I use to be true to him is the fact that I do not like his politics. I mean, the rapid imperialism, taking this spot, taking that spot, doing this, that, and kind of forcing the United States, muscling in on the rest of the world. That was him. His notions of executive power, extreme. He hated Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson, he blamed for the War of 1812, and governmentally, his big dispute with Jefferson was Jefferson had that, as the writer of the Declaration of Independence and firm understander of the Constitution, Jeffersonian concepts of it is the government can do nothing unless the Constitution expressly says they can. Roosevelt flipped it. The government can do anything the Constitution doesn't specifically prohibit, which is why he was the master of executive power. So whenever somebody's complaining about a modern president using too much executive power, between him and Jackson way back in the day, those guys were the ones that really threw it in there. So knowing I disagree with those concepts politically, but having enormous respect for him, I like Theodore Roosevelt more than politicians I agree with. I mean, how many people here like politics? A couple, or I'm sorry, don't have a professional interest in it. You just kind of take a joy in it.
Yes.
Okay, good. I'll give you that. Yes. I'll absolutely give you that. It's like watching a train wreck, but no. I mean, one of the things I've always felt was, there's too much, there's not enough power from the people. The legislature should have sway, but the legislature's easy to walk back and just let things happen in front of them, just so long as they get elected. So, knowing that I have these differences of opinion from the gentleman I portray, I hope and pray it keeps me on point, because I respect him, the man, enough that I don't want to pollute his opinions through my filter. It's kind of like journalism. You might not agree with what's happening, but you got to report it accurately. And the last thing I want to do to the honor and memory of Theodore Roosevelt Jr. is caricature him for my own political aims. I've worked in character with lots of other people in the last 25, 26 years, and I have seen a lot of folks take their character and turn them into a soapbox. I've got all your attention, now I'm going to tell you my opinion as if so-and-so said it. Lord Nelson, whoever that matter. And I hate that, I loathe it, because I think it is an abuse of the trust you people put into me just now. I think that's an abuse. So the fact that I disagree with him always makes me touchy when I'm talking about his stuff. So I'm going out of my way to not do anything with it. It's my own personal barometer. You know? And I'm sorry, that's a long-winded question. Or answer.
So he didn't like Jefferson, but he built his resort right next to Monticello. Huh?
Hey, you know, the man liked nice woods. Yes, ma'am.
Do you think that some of that Teddy Roosevelt power grab is because of the childhood he had, which was such a struggle to be healthy, to be strong, to survive?
I'd say that has to bear into it to a degree. I would say if part of that's coming from his childhood, which obviously it must, because we're all affected by our childhood. I would say, my opinion is most of that came from his father. His father was a very quiet, gentle, convicted man. He was a strong, good Christian. He had a notion that if you can do good, you must do good, and you can't do it in half measures. So when he gets into office, one of the more interesting stories about Roosevelt, after he helps to settle the coal strike, just his first, second year in office, he says, you know what, fine. You guys don't want to sit down and talk? I will seize the coal mines, make them nationalized, and I'll send the army into mine. I'm not going to have the American people cold this winter. And the strike hit right before cold weather, right? And that's when you do it,
Sure.
And this was going on, and an aide, I can't remember who it was, somebody said, well, Mr. President, what in the Constitution gives you the right to grab up private property and nationalize it without due process? He said, and he grabs him by the lapels. Roosevelt grabs the man by the lapels. The Constitution was made for the people. The people were not made for the Constitution. So in other words, I have the power to stop this, and I'm going to do it. Same with the Panama Canal. I've set the Panama Canal, and we fomented a rebellion, between the Panamanians and the Colombians. Afterward, he's sitting here going, well, they're all arguing back and forth about me in Congress. Canal's getting dug. Let them fuss about me all they want. I don't care. Canal's getting dug. I've done what was right for the Navy and the United States. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
What was his relationship with the media?
Loved it, loved it, loved it. He mentions the muckrakers. The muckrakers is one of his big things. He loved the fact that the media was there, well, the newspapers. That was really the only true media at the point, I guess. He loved the fact that they'd get in there and dig. But, going back to the personal responsibility that his father ingrained in him, he said, you dig, you dig, you dig, you dig, you dig. Don't start digging. You call evil out. Make sure you call good out. When you see good, you report that as hard as you report the bad. And if you ever start making up stuff, get off of it. You are not out there to do it to sell newspapers. You're there for the public trust. So, and if you think about it, he's the first president that is completely in the public eye. He sees a camera and he runs towards it. He sees a movie camera, he runs for it with his arms waving. He wants to be visible doing things. And the same, I don't know if you've ever heard of his voice recordings. They have about 5 voice recordings from Roosevelt on wax cylinders. And they are amazing. They're mostly from his 1812, or his different time period. His 1912 campaign. They're campaign speeches. But it's, I mean, thank goodness I've got them. That's why I kind of pull the voice up a little bit, and it's just, but it's just so fascinating. Most of the characters I portrayed in my life are dead by the time movies come around. So we have no idea what they sound like, have no idea how they move. So yeah, I mean, the media, thank goodness for the media. Thank goodness for the media. Was that me? Did I say that? But yeah, his idea with the media was keep it, it's good, so long as it doesn't violate the trust that we have.
What was his relationship with the Supreme Court then, if he took those views of the Constitution?
Honestly, I have not.
What was the effect with him? No, it wasn't.
Yeah, I haven't done a lot of reading between him and the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court wasn't extremely active as far as I know at this point, but I'm not sure. Like I say, I haven't done a lot of reading on his interaction with them yet.
So no one was to keep him in check. There was no.
People weren't moving real hard against him, except through elections and stuff like that. But like I say, I've just barely touched on the Supreme Court, so I'd be real hesitant to make an answer to it. Yes, ma'am.
Who else have you portrayed?
Oh, golly whiz. Nobody that says golly whiz in earnest. Let's see. I was born in I was raised in Chesterfield County, Virginia, just south of Richmond. And I had the opportunity at my day job, Colonial Williamsburg, to portray Archibald Carey, who was the Speaker of the County. He was the Chairman of the Committee of the Whole when Virginia voted for the resolutions for independence. He was a Burgess. He was the Chief Justice of the county for about 20 years. He was just a huge mover and shaker in the revolutionary movement. But because he's in the back pushing, he doesn't get the notoriety, and of course he doesn't go into the national thing. A lot of folks know him as the persecutor of Baptists in the colonial period, because he was General Baptist for preaching without licenses. So he's an interesting. Oh yeah, we can talk about that all day. So yeah, he's my primary, but it's personal because I grew up in his county. I literally know exactly where his plantation house was. Well, where it is, Carey Street, Richmond. Well, there you go, Carey Street. But I've also portrayed Captain Edward Smith of the Titanic. I've portrayed various lower sort of characters. Some of them composites, because poor people and slaves, it's very difficult to get a lot of personal information on them, so they can't keep track. The other one I'm portraying at my day job is a man by the name of Alicia James, who is a poor man who was receiving church benefit, most likely, during up to and through the Revolutionary period. So we're using him over there to talk about social welfare in the 18th century and how the church plays in as a part of the government. So yeah, that's the highlights. But we're always pulling in new stuff. My wife, she is right there with my mother-in-law. It's her 80th birthday. Yeah, she's a great cook. Oh man, I love it. All those that didn't fall far from the tree. But no, my wife portrays Martha Washington. She's bringing up a program on female suffrage. What's the name? Crazy woman. I call her a crazy woman.
Victoria Woodhull.
Victoria Woodhull, first woman to run for president of the United States. Right now I'm moonlighting. Should have done that Monday. Hey, Roosevelt loves science. He loves science.
How many national parks he visited?
Yes.
Getting back to national parks, did you visit all the national parks at the time that they were?
I'm sure he had a hand in it. He dies in 1919, and the national parks don't really get rolling until about 1912.
Oh.
So I'm sure he had a hand in opening them and that kind of thing, because it was so close to his heart. But I'm not sure exactly. In my preparations to be Roosevelt, I need to go further, but I'm focusing mostly up until his death. So, and getting ready for this, I stopped at 1907. So it's just been kind of, since I'm new at the character, I'm kind of researching the things I need. So.
But Roosevelt, because he attached that was split, put
Oh, yes.
Wilson in office, right?
It sure did. It's the curse of the third party. It really is. I mean, we all have a right to have that third choice, but unfortunately, the other two will take advantage of it. Well, I mean, if you look at what happened in Germany with the rise of the Nazis, they only had about 30% of the vote because there were so many other factions. They just ended up with a bigger piece of the pie, so that's what put them in power. So the majority of Germans didn't want the Nazis in control. They wanted somebody else, but unfortunately, they couldn't get together on who. So the Nazis just slipped right in. Yes, sir.
Being here at Jamestown, what was Theodore's relationship with the Native people?
Theodore Roosevelt was a flawed man, just like every other human who set foot on the earth, except one. He had a notion that the Indians should be citizens of the United States. They're not made citizens until 1924, until after women get the vote. He had said the most inflammatory thing he ever said, and I don't remember the quote exactly, was that I wouldn't say the only good Indian is a dead Indian, but 9 times out of 10 that's true, and I won't look too hard at the 10th. Now, put that in perspective. See, this is the thing where you got to put things in perspective. He was a kid when he said it. He was 28 years old. He was out in the West. He was kind of taking the Western view of things. You know, the folks that were pushing these guys around and getting reprisals put on them, and just all this stuff. So he was the subject of what he was hearing from them all the time. Now, his opinion softened as time went, and he started to see the squalor that so many of these natives were forced to live in, he said. So he did have a notion that they ought to be citizens with all the responsibilities. You've probably heard some of these quotes about hyphenated Americans. He said no such thing. If you have a hyphen before American, you're not American. You can be proud of who and what you are. You can be proud of where your parents came from, but you are an American here. If you're a citizen, you're one of us. There's no hyphen. And he saw the same thing for Native Americans, he said. So he was one that pushed for that. But he also said, due to the right of conquest, because the Europeans conquered the continent, the notion of tribes, we need to get rid of it. He called it a sentimentalist notion. And this is not attributed to Roosevelt, but a common phrase was kill the Indian. To kill the Indian, save the man. To Europeanize them. To educate the savage out of them, basically. So I mean that was kind of his opinion. So.
Did he try to break the treaties?
It's not so much a matter of treaty breaking at this point. It's a matter of forcing them to assimilate. So he wants them to be American citizens. And I can't remember the name of the tribe. When they were getting a game preserve, it was either a game preserve or a national forest set up. The Indians that were living there, he said, "You people got to pack up and leave, because this needs to be out here for all Americans. American citizens need to have access to this piece of their country." So the best way to get access to it again is to be an American citizen, or at least get on that path. So basically, it was just a matter. You're Americans now. Deal with it. Like I say, I mean, I don't think he wished them any specific harm, but he's one of us now, like it or not. And like I said, a flawed concept for sure, but a human being. I mean, no way around that. Yes, sir.
What happened to all those trophy animals that he killed while in here?
The ones that he had mounted up at Sagamore Hill are still hanging in Sagamore Hill, which is wonderful. The elephant that he killed on safari in Africa is in the Museum of Natural History in Washington. I assume most of what he has is still in existence. I mean, he killed lots of animals. But he didn't do it in an unconservationist way. He was one of these people that did not want to waste the animals. When he was on that big African safari where they talk about 500 or 700 animals killed, all of them except for I think 12 he kept for trophies. No, all but 12. I think 12 was the number. He kept those for trophies, had them shipped home. The rest of them they ate or sent them away for scientific research. Because they were traveling with tons of salt, specifically to preserve them and ship them back.
How about his army days with the first cav, and what did he do? What got?
Oh, the United States Volunteers?
Yeah, what got into those positions? And was he connected?
He organized them, so he gets to be in charge. There was a volunteer unit. So when he was in the United States Volunteers, the Rough Riders, that was his baby. He had to answer to the regular Army commanders. That was his unit.
So was he working for the 2nd Cav Regiment at that time?
Not sure.
No, the 2nd Cav was...
Yeah, not sure. I know that there was one man ahead of him in rank, and I can't remember if he was sick or he was detached somewhere else, but that put him in charge of the Rough Riders, especially for that fighting at Kettle Hill and San Juan Hill. So I'm not exactly Not exactly sure what his connections to the regular Army units were. I know the regular Army guys did not like him. Because he's an upstart, he's not Southern.
Is it root?
I'm sorry?
Is it root?
That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
It will be. Because, well, I mean, when after the fighting's done, he starts writing letters to Congress saying, "I need the Congressional Medal of Honor. I earned it." And he worked tirelessly to get that recognition. One of the more interesting quotes of his is, "The only thing I regret is not returning from Cuba with a disfiguring scar." He's, well, I mean, he didn't extol the virtues of war. He extolled the virtues of men in war. And he thought, you know, and we've heard it before, that war brings out the best and worst in the human being, as is witnessed in Cuba and in the Philippines. Philippines, when we took the Philippines away from the Spanish, there were people who used the opportunity to do really horrible things to the Filipinos, and they weren't really selective on whether or not they were Spanish supporters or not. There were some people who, you know, died trying to save innocent Filipinos, and there were ones that just didn't care. They just saw it as an opportunity to shoot another human being and get away with it outside of war. I mean, like I said, it's anybody. What is it? Robert E. Lee said that oh, it's good that war is so terrible lest we become too fond of it. Can't argue with the wisdom of a statement like that, regardless of context. Well, friends, thank you so much. If y'all like pictures or anything like that, I know I still have the mustache on. So, we can step outside for a little while. I was going to walk around and enjoy the place a little bit. I'm happy to go out and chat with you or whatever it is you like to do. Or if you want to just sit here in the cool, it's a warm day. So,
I could have sworn the mustache was real.
thank you for that.
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
Oh, if y'all have a mind of it, our Facebook page is Shades of Our Past.
Oh, okay.
So if you want to see some more blue on Facebook,
Really, it's going to be